Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we're back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And of course, I am joined by the Hall of Famer, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Ted, good to be here with you again, man.
Hey, once again, I'm feeling like $1 million, having a good day. Gosh, there's a lot of people getting sick and what have you. And I worry about that because I travel. When you travel a lot and you're in and out of airports and around a lot of people, it's easy to pick stuff up, but I have been very lucky. So let's keep my fingers crossed. And
you've been out there shaking hands with folks, and that's a good way to get sick. A lot of people coming up to you. That being said, what is your next appearance coming up here, Ted?
This weekend, I'm going to be, it's called Dream Waves. It's in the Chicago area. And I'm not sure, but I think this guy is a guy that's got an independent wrestling organization, and I'm making an appearance for him. So
yes, I've heard of them. Dreamwave Wrestling. And they are, out of Chicago, and it is an independent wrestling organization. So who knows, Ted? Maybe they'll put a little extra cheese on your Whopper to get you to go in there and do a bump,
brother. Everybody's got a price. But
I knew there was a butt coming.
Yeah.
It might be a steep price to get the $1 Million Man in there.
Oh, yeah, it would be a very steep price. Yeah.
Well, Ted, I'm really excited about our topic this week because we're looking back to the end of 1983 this time and revisiting your time there in Georgia. It's December, of course, and there's a lot going on in the territory, including your involvement in one of the hottest storylines of the period with Tommy Rich. So I can't wait to get back into it, brother. But before we do, want to remind our listeners, get over to youtube.com/@everybody's-got-a-pod and get subscribed. We have stories that you will not hear on the podcast over there. So if you're a diehard Everybody's Got a Pod fan, there's content that you're missing out on over there, and it drops every Monday as a YouTube exclusive clip. We've also got short bite-sized videos from the podcast, which is a great way to introduce somebody who is unfamiliar with the podcast, what we're doing here. And we've got something very special going on for our subscribers. We are giving away Ted's new Target exclusive WWE Elite and his WWE Superstars figure, and they are both going to be signed. So for your chance to be one of 2 lucky winners, all you have to do is get subscribed today at youtube.com/@everybody's-got-a-pod. So Ted, you're going to be starting out December working against Pistol Pez Whatley in West Virginia. Pez is another one of those guys that we will not likely talk about very often here on the show. Wondering if you have any memories of him.
Just that he was a really nice guy. Obviously, he was never a gigantic star of any kind, but fundamentally sound. And it was kind of like, put it this way, there were guys that I would get in the ring with, and some that you would just tolerate because you had to, and then there were others that you actually enjoyed getting in the ring with, and Pez was one of those guys. So
I've heard from a lot of guys, very, very well-respected talent, and a good, sound, fundamental worker.
Right, exactly.
Now, you said it, he's one of those guys who never really went on to become a huge star, and I've heard some folks debate over the years whether or not certain guys should or shouldn't be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Pez is one of those guys who will get brought up in that conversation from time to time after he was inducted in the class of 2021. I'd love to get your take on Pez's inclusion in the Hall of Fame. Do you believe that he belongs there, or was it reaching a little bit too far?
Well, I mean, maybe from a fan's from a fan looking, and because Pez he was never a headliner. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But he just about worked with everybody. It would be maybe if you asked a football player about some guy that got inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame, whether he deserved it or not, and you're going to get different answers. But Pez was liked by everybody because he was easy. He was easy to have a match with, and that wasn't always the case. And he, like I said, fundamentally sound. I mean, it was just, and sometimes it's just fate. Somebody's at the right place at the right time, and somebody's got an idea, and they go from being a nobody to a superstar. And I feel like Pez was a solid worker. I don't know that he would ever be a like major headliner, but he certainly deserves what I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I really do.
I agree with you. And, looking back across Pez's career, and even this time, as I'm researching it here, Pez has put in some high profile positions here in the company, maybe not because he was a huge star, but because he was a guy who was capable of going out there and having a strong showing.
Yeah, exactly. You said it better than I did. But exactly.
Ted, Johnny Rich is another guy you're working with in the early part of December, and he is, of course, the brother of the guy you'll be having a big feud with in Georgia, Tommy Rich. So Johnny didn't have quite the same success as his brother in wrestling. How would you compare their work? Do you remember working with Johnny at all?
Yeah, I mean, and he was okay. He was fair work. He was a fair worker. Okay, he wasn't bad. But he wasn't great. And again, here's where you draw the line. The one thing you can teach a guy how to take all the bumps and how to protect himself and all that stuff. And you can even do ring routines and high spots with them. The one thing you can't teach anybody is charisma. You either have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, especially in pro wrestling, which is an entertainment field, you're not going to make it. Hulk Hogan, the Hulkster wasn't really a great ring general, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was only a few moves that he did, but he had charisma. Hey, brother. What you gonna do?
that was a pretty good impression. So you felt that Tommy was just head and shoulders above his brother from a charisma standpoint, which is
absolutely.
why
Tommy had it. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Tommy the microphone and he could go with it.
It's interesting hearing you bring up Hogan there too, because recently I had heard another small debate in wrestling, go figure, a wrestling debate where it was actually centered around WrestleMania 6, where some people swear up and down that the best match on the card was you and Jake at that event. And when I watched back the event, I agree. It was you and Jake. You guys stole the show in your match. However, the match that always gets referenced and that people talk about all the time, even up to this day, is one of the great WrestleMania moments, was Warrior and Hogan. Those are two guys that are not considered great workers certainly not by any means on Warrior's end. And Hogan was like a functional worker, a good charismatic guy. But they are the ones that really kind of get the notoriety. And I just find it interesting that you and Jake are these polished, technical, second generation wrestlers, but the guys who get all the notoriety are the guys who aren't really known for being great ring workers.
Well, I mean, and again, it's just kind of like who determines who gets pushed and who doesn't, right?
Yep.
Who's going to get the time, and the Hulkster, like I said, he was great on the mic. He wasn't bad, in the ring, but I'm sorry, he was really good on the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Hulk.
Yes.
And but the other guy, he wasn't good at anything.
No, he was good at bodybuilding.
He was good at bodybuilding, and I think that I don't know. I don't know why, but maybe that was just one of those things where Vince said, I'm going to prove that I can make anybody a star, because this guy, obviously he was dedicated, and and it takes a lot of work and discipline to build a body like that. I get that. I can appreciate that. That doesn't make you a wrestler.
Kind of randomly, in the middle of your issues with Tommy and Johnny Rich, you'll go to a double DQ with Buzz Sawyer in the Omni. Jake tells me that Buzz was helping Ole Anderson book during this time, and Buzz was positioning both himself and his brother really well there in Georgia. The two were even going to defeat the Red Hot Road Warriors on a number of occasions this month. And Jake was like, he told me personally during our Legion of Doom episode that we did, that he was just appalled by the idea of it, because he's like, here's the Road Warriors. There's these two big muscle-bound guys. They're getting over huge, and Buzz and Brett Sawyer are beating them. He was like, it was just ridiculous. Ted, did you get that impression during this time?
Yep. Jake hit it right on the head. And Buzz wasn't he wasn't a bad worker, but he wasn't a great worker either.
That's what I keep hearing about him. And look,
it's like good guy on the card, yeah. Main eventer, no.
I've talked about Jake and Jim Duggan about Buzz. Jim very recently on ad-free shows, and neither of them had any kind words to say about the man at all.
No.
What can you tell our listeners about your interactions with Buzz Sawyer?
I didn't have any. Like, if I had to get in the ring with him, I would do that. But aside from that, I stayed as far away from that because I didn't want to explode. I didn't want to, if I'm around this guy too much, it's not gonna, it's not gonna be good. And I just distanced myself totally, kept to my, my own business. And it just, anything I had to do with him was strictly business, and that's it.
Jim was telling me that he was good friends with Matt Bourne, and Jim was like, that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the guy. If those two are friends.
That Matt Bourne and Buzz were good friends?
Yes.
Again, yeah, Jimbo was right. Yeah.
Well,
Jim knows that too. I never. I don't know. I guess because when we were doing the deal with Jim, like this is when I turned on Jim or right in Mid-South, and I had what they call it. I don't know what they called it, but I had I was like the ringleader, and Matt Bourne was one of the guys.
You were the King Cheese, they always called you.
Yeah, the big cheese.
The big cheese, that's it. The King Rat, I heard them call
you. Yeah.
But yeah, it's so you never really ran afoul of Matt Bourne either. Like you guys just didn't have enough time around each other to have an issue.
Well, no, because I wasn't going to be around him because, again, I had the same attitude about him as most everybody did. Here's a guy who's just a big turd.
It's a lousy human being by all accounts.
Yeah.
Well, another guy that is universally disliked, at least by many folks, is Ole Anderson. I just mentioned him there as kind of the head booker. I've personally never met him, but I always loved his work and his mic skills. Why do you think Ole had heat with so many people?
Well, you know what? I'll be honest. I really don't know, because I wasn't around Ole that much. Because when I came into Atlanta, he had been the booker, and it was kind of like, it was almost like things were all up in the air. Like they were, he was leaving, and I never had any problem with Ole. I mean, personally, I didn't. Of course, I don't know if I was around him long enough. Maybe I would have, but I never had an issue with him. I thought he was good on the mic, and he was like the Anderson brothers, Ole and Gene Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I never really had the opportunity to work with him any, so. Because he was a heel, and I think I was by then too.
You certainly were during this era here in 1983. We'll get into that in a minute. You mentioned him. Jim Barnett is a guy that we just have not talked about much when we talk about your run in Georgia. Barnett is going to sell out his shares of Georgia Championship Wrestling to Vince coming up here in 1984, and that'll kick off the infamous Black Saturday incident. Did you get much time with Barnett?
Not really. No. Not not hardly at all.
So he was not a guy hanging around the TV studio a lot of the time?
No, you hardly ever saw him.
I've heard a lot of impressions of Barnett over the years. Any chance you've
My boy.
That's what I was looking for. That's all I needed.
Yeah.
So Ted, I've got to ask you about this guy as well. Chick Donovan is working in Georgia during this time, opening a lot of shows and doing honors for Johnny Rich and a number of other guys. I bring up Chick because he is still an active wrestler today at 76 years old. And he looks pretty damn good, very muscular, in good shape, tan, still got all of his hair. Did you spend a lot of time around Chick?
No, I did. No,
never got to know him.
Not really. I mean, decent guy. Not anybody you wouldn't like. I don't think. I wasn't around him enough. I was only around him in the dressing room.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's incredible seeing. I'm going to share a picture of him on social. It's just incredible seeing this guy and his physique. Even today, he's got these big arms. Like he looks better than half the young guys nowadays. So good on him at 76 years old, going out there still doing it. That's him with Ricky Morton's son.
Really?
Yeah. Ricky Morton's son is working with NWA. I don't know if that's for NWA or some indie show, but that's Chick Donovan today.
Wow.
Yeah, it looks pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy, what did he say, 76? Man,
76 years old, still out there.
I mean, you know what? God bless him for the discipline to still have that kind of a body. That's pretty good.
I mean, I don't know what that dude is eating or what his workout regimen looks like, but at 76 years old, I mean, he's got to be spending 4 hours a day in the gym at least.
Yeah, well, it really looks good on the outside, but you got to wonder how it looks on the inside.
Oh, geez. Yeah, his back and neck got to be like a stack of dimes in there after all those bumps. So your future tag team partner, Stan Hansen, is going to be here in Georgia, teaming up with Bugsy McGraw against the Road Warriors. Stan is going to have his greatest success in wrestling over in Japan, of course, but he'll have some notable run-ins with guys like Bruno Sammartino, Hogan, Bob Backlund, and plenty more here in the States. Do you feel like if he would have hung around here more in America, hung around the WWF and NWA, do you feel like he could have had the same success he had in Japan, or was he just...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and because Stan was, again, he was good on the microphone too, and again, Stan Hansen is another descendant of the Funk family. Stan Hansen is another guy who played football at West Texas State. Not only that, when I was recruited by West Texas State, Stan was like a what do you call it? Like a student assistant coach.
Okay.
At the time, he was like one of the assistant, like a student coach for West Texas State when I was recruited. That's when I met him.
How about that?
And I remember Stan having his first match in Amarillo on a Thursday night. I rode in the car with Terry Funk and him up to the building, and so I saw him have his first match.
How about that? That is wild.
All those years later, man, and Brody got to be big names, and when he needed a new partner, he came to me, and I said, I jumped on it, and I don't know, I have no idea how much money Stan made. But I mean, he's working. Number one, here's the thing, like tax wise, and here's part of the agreement in the contract is that All Japan agreed. I mean, and I had the same contract, agreed to pay the taxes that I would have owed to Japan. They paid my tax to Japan. Well, now since they paid my tax to Japan, I couldn't, and then I go back to the United States. You can't get, you can't get double. In other words, I got like, I still had to pay tax, but not as much. So in reality, I'm getting a break on my taxes, even though my Japan tax already been paid by the company.
So that might be what's really at the crux of why he
Yeah,
spent so much of his time in Japan over the course of
yeah,
his career.
yeah.
So he got like a bunch of tax breaks and was probably making an absolute killing over there for years upon years.
Well,
Where
and that's the other thing. And I've thought about it, brother. I've thought about, man. I wonder if I would have been smarter to stay there in terms of just money wise, because the only thing I had to pay for was my food. I didn't have to pay for any hotels. I didn't have to pay for any transportation. All I had to pay for was my food.
that does kind of make you wonder, doesn't it?
Yep.
So, so Ted, I mean, you became part of pop culture as the $1 Million Man. More valuable to become part of pop culture, or more valuable to just make as much money as humanly possible in as short a period of time as possible, in your
Well,
opinion?
I keep asking myself that question. Like, yeah, how would it would have been? Well, but of course, yeah. I mean, again, now Stan is extremely well known in Japan, but he's not that well known here because he didn't spend that much time here. And I think long term, I guess it was probably better that I made the move to Vince.
Probably. I mean, it's
It's like they. I mean, I think like I've got. Somebody told me they've just released or just recently released. There's a new action figure, Funko Pop or something out there that looks like me.
and they're fixing to release more. I just saw some more prototype images. So yeah, I mean, Stan Hansen, awesome guy, great wrestler. I'm a huge fan of his work, but they're not releasing a lot of action figures of Stan Hansen.
Yeah.
So it does kind of make you wonder.
Yeah.
So Ted, you were right at home here in Georgia being a heel during this time. And after you defeat Tommy Rich on December 6th in Macon, you're going to claim that you had a verbal agreement with the promotion that Tommy Rich's career would end. He never signed the contract, so you'll call him out, which leads us to a high stakes stipulation on Christmas Day. Let's drop in on an interview ahead of the big match.
Of course, tomorrow night in the Omni here in
Christmas
Atlanta.
night, Tommy Rich. Christmas night, all the marbles on the line. Not just a wrestling match. Not just a simple win or a loss in the national heavyweight title. Somebody's career, Tommy Rich. You have agreed that if you lose, if I beat you in the Omni, you are not only going to be beaten, but you are going to quit. You're going to give up your wrestling career. That's right. If you beat me, I'll quit. I'll have no further reason to stay here, and the title will be yours. But Tommy Rich, I hope, for your sake, that you know something else in life besides professional wrestling that can do something else. Because on Christmas night, I'm going to come out the winner, and you're going to be looking for a job.
Short and sweet, man. That was good stuff.
Dang, man, I look at that and go, where'd that guy go, man? Wow, man. Now it's back here and go, oh, gosh.
It's funny seeing those images of you because
man, it hurts.
Talking to Jim Duggan, he's always like, Ted and I were buddies. He was like, but Ted kind of ran with like, the Terry Taylors and the Ric Flair. He was like, Ted would be wearing like the nice suit and going out to like the fancy bars. He was like, me and Terry Gorey were just going to like honky tonks and getting into fights with people. Yeah. So it's cool seeing that image of you because you are like, you're a hateable heel. You've got this great head of hair. You're wearing the suit. You're arrogant. It's just like, yeah, man, it's just, it really works well. And what else is going to work here is this loser leaves town stipulation on Christmas Day. What do you think of the stakes for a match like that, adding loser leaves town?
Well, I mean, it's great. It's again on Christmas Day, and it's kind of like for the wrestling fan, here's a chance to go see the guy that they hate the most, not only get beat, but get kicked out of town. So yeah, it was great.
It's good psychology. And, this premise is not anything that's new to wrestling. We saw JYD returning as Stagger Lee. And we're going to see Dusty return as the Midnight Rider. And now we're about to get it again here with Mr. R. I think a lot of fans are going to hear me reference Dusty as the Midnight Rider and think about his days in JCP. Nope. He did it in Florida first after I think it was he lost a loser leaves town to Kevin Sullivan and Jake Roberts, as a matter of fact. So like this is something that works over and over again in wrestling, and now it's about to work again with you and Mr. R. Why do you what's the psychology here? Like, why does this work so well with fans?
Well, I mean, because the fans, obviously, the fans know, and they know, and they get a big kick out of watching the heel in his frustration, like almost pulling your hair out, going, it's just like you're looking and going, what are you people crazy? Look, it's like when with Tom, especially Tommy had all that blonde hair hanging out from underneath. Man, I said, it's Tommy Rich. It's Tommy Rich. He said, well, all you got to do to prove it is take his mask off.
You guys have a lot of fun with this angle coming up. I cannot wait to talk about what's to come with you and Mr. R, which will be starting next month. You're going to defeat Tommy Rich on Christmas Day, of course, but you'll cheat to get the job done. And with that being the case, Tommy continues to compete, and you'll come out to interrupt him during a match. Afterwards, he'll come talk to Gordon Soley about the whole situation. So this is a clip of both your interruption and his post-match promo.
Well, right now, certainly Tommy's wondering, and I know you're wondering, I'm wondering. We're all waiting word, and we supposedly are going to be finding out sometime yet, hopefully before the hour is over. I was just back there by the control room, and I see DiBiase staggering around. He's as mad as a hornet. But once again, this match is going to take place, whether Mr. DiBiase likes it or not.
All right, and it is Tommy Wildfire.
What's going on here? What's this man doing in the ring? He signed a contract that if he lost Christmas night, he was going to leave. He wasn't going to wrestle anymore. What, is he not a man of his word? What are you doing here?
Well, we've got a problem here. We've got a problem here in DiBiase protesting the situation, and all right, DiBiase creating quite a furor here at ringside. Ole Henderson trying to calm him down. Freddie Miller and Roger Bond makes it back in.
I guarantee you something will be done about this.
Mr. DiBiase either goes back, or we can make certain that there'll be some arrangements made where he can be suspended again.
Find out just exactly. Tommy, I guess you realize full well more than any of us that this may be your final appearance on World Championship Wrestling.
Yes, sir, Gordon. Well aware of it. Just one of them things. Just got to wait and see what happens, I guess.
Well, of course, there are some questions surrounding the manner in which you lost that particular match to Ted DiBiase, but nonetheless, a contract was signed.
Yes, sir, certainly was. The bad thing about it, I hate that I let all the people in Georgia and around the country down because I thought I could beat the man.
Well, a lot of people...
Excuse me, Tommy, I don't mean to interrupt, but I told the people here, and I was talking with Gordon, and I said the one thing that you'd said to me earlier, and that is that you'd gotten a lot of encouragement from the fans, just like right here we hear them, and you said to me that you were going to fight it, you're going to do whatever you could to make sure that you stayed in wrestling, and I know that's what I'd like to see. I know you'd like to see it, and I'm sure everybody all over the world would like to see Tommy Rich stay in wrestling.
Tommy, all we can do is wish you the very, very best, my friend.
Thank you very much, Gordon. We just have to wait and see what happens. But, it's like I said time and again. I'm an old country boy, and whatever happens, it just happens. I'll have to just wait and see.
Okay, so there it is. Tommy Rich is
just an old country boy. That's
that's him. It's funny. He always references himself as just a country boy, just a redneck, and it certainly makes a connection with all the folks down south.
Absolutely.
So he's waiting on word from President Bob Geigel and the board of directors to see if they're going to count your victory against him as legitimate. I mean, it's just a great way to kind of kick the can down the road and tell the story here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Tommy Rich for a minute. At this point, he has already been the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He's been a huge fan favorite for years in this territory. Watching back that promo, though, like he doesn't have this big muscular physique. He's very quiet, very mellow, reserved on the microphone, as opposed to like a lot of guys back in those days that were just shouting all the time. And he doesn't, I don't know, for me, he's just not like jumping off the screen the way that you or Jake or Ric Flair do during your promos.
Well, there's, if you saw him in some other promos, he could cut a pretty good promo, and he was he was good. I mean, obviously the girls loved him. Here's this good looking guy with long blonde hair, and there wasn't anything not to like about him. And again, it's the good old country boy thing, and so yeah, I mean, and he got over because he could work. That's the thing. It's like in wrestling, it's kind of like, there's a lot of great big physiques. Ultimate Warrior had a tremendous body, but he couldn't work worth a crap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had to be led around by his nose, and even then he wasn't very good. There's the difference. Tommy didn't have a great body. I didn't have a massive body either. And it's about what you can do in the ring and the story you tell and how you tell it. And that's what comes across. Charisma. You either have it or you don't. And he had it too.
Well, there's no denying that connection with the fans. You could hear them even during that promo that he was cutting, saying like, "You did win," and really kind of starting to get fired up about this potential of him, having to leave. Talking about Tommy, it makes me wonder. Vince had scooped up pretty much anybody who had success in the territories during these days and turned them into household names with his TV. Why do you think Tommy never got a shot up there in Connecticut?
I don't know if he I really don't know at all. I don't know if he didn't get a shot or he didn't want to go there. I don't know.
It makes you wonder. And I know that Vince is like a body guy and whatnot, but Vince, he also brought in guys who didn't have great bodies, who were just connected with the audience. So I don't know. It's just strange.
Yeah. I have no idea. I really don't.
Well, Jake has been open about not being a big fan of Tommy's and has talked about Tommy burning a lot of bridges in the territory by showing up drunk. Tommy himself has admitted that there were days he'd wake up and crack a beer and not stop drinking until he went to bed that night. I've heard a number of talents who worked with Tommy over the years talk about him being drunk while they were in the ring with him. But, most of these talents, whenever they talk about him, they say like, hey, but it was still a good match, but he was drunk. Did you ever?
You know what? I can't, that's almost, some of that's kind of surprising to me because I never really witnessed that.
Really?
And I don't know if that was, I never knew him to be, drunk in the ring or anything like that. Wow. I didn't, I can't recall any time that I worked with him that I was, like worried or upset that he was, wasted.
Yeah, Jake had told a story about him. I think it was like he got into a strap match or something. It was like this really brutal, vicious kind of match. And Tommy was drunk. And afterwards, he got on the mic and he wound up like he's a baby face. And he wound up kind of like yelling at the fans and saying like, none of you actually care about me. It was like one of those kind of promos, even though he's a baby face.
Yeah.
And Jake was like, man, it was just like embarrassing. And he left the promotion shortly thereafter. So I was like, geez, Ted is working hand in hand with this guy, pretty much for your entire run. So I'm like, I'm wondering if you ever saw anything, but you never experienced it.
I didn't. No, man.
Interesting.
I didn't.
We're going to close out the year with another fun promo from you after you've learned what the verdict is from President Bob Geigel and the board of directors. It's our final clip this week.
Lord Shirley, I hear all of these people crying and sobbing and carrying on, but yes, it's true. The contract was valid. It was signed. Tommy Rich is finished. He can't wrestle, and all these people are crying and sobbing over it. Why cry? You've got the greatest wrestling machine that ever set foot in a square circle right here on World Championship Wrestling. And I'm not talking about Buzz Sawyer, and I'm not talking about any of these other goofs running around here. I'm talking about yours truly, Ted DiBiase, the national heavyweight champion. I promised you people that I would win the national heavyweight title. I did. I promised you I'd hurt Tommy Rich. I did. And I promised you I would beat him and get rid of him. And just like 1983, he's gone. And I am here, Gordon Soley. And ladies and gentlemen, I am here to stay.
Another one, short and sweet, and man, you were really pushing people's buttons there, weren't you?
Yeah, boy. Yeah, like a lot of fans will come up to me and they'll go, "Hey, Mr. DiBiase said, don't be offended, but man, I used to love to hate you."
That's about as nice a compliment as you can get as a
I
heel,
guess
right?
so. Anyway,
Oh man, funny. I know you've got to go, Ted. Before I do let you go, I just want to ask you one more quick question, and then we'll wrap
gotcha.
this thing up. So Ric Flair's in Georgia during this time, in December, and he's defending that NWA title against Tommy Rich and Pez Whatley. I know that Flair is coming into the territory as a heel, of course, because he's the champion coming into this territory. Which means he's only going to be defending against baby faces. I also know that you enjoyed being a heel, but did it feel like being a heel when the champion would come into the territory? Did it kind of feel like you were missing out on opportunities for like these kind of main event paydays by not being a baby face?
Well, the thing about it is whenever the world champion came in, he didn't come in to stay. I mean, the NWA champion, he would come in and he would do a week.
Mm-hmm.
And he would work, the only place that Ric Flair was a baby face as a world champion would have been in Charlotte, which is what was his home territory.
Right.
Everywhere else, the world champion was a heel because the promotion, they wanted to pit the world champion against their top baby face. And so he was always a heel. Any NWA world champion was always a heel in every territory except his own.
Right. And here you are as a red hot heel in Georgia. And it's like, man, I know that if it were me and, here comes Ric Flair and he's a heel coming into the territory, I'd be like,
yeah, but he's not stepping on my toes because he's only going to be, he's in and he's out. He's going to be there a week, and he's going to wrestle the loop, whatever that week is. And then he's gone, and I'm still there.
Okay. So you were looking more big picture, like, okay, he's got the main events against these guys now, but I'm going to have them as soon as he's gone and I'm here to stay.
Well, yeah. Cause usually whoever that main event would be, he'd be wrestling the same guy in every town.
Mm-hmm.
Usually. Whoever the top baby face was, and that would, then, Flair, and if it was Tommy was still there, it would have been Tommy.
It was. So he was wrestling Pez Whatley and Tommy Rich, which are two guys that you wrestled this month. So that kind of tells you how you're positioned as the top heel in this company at this time.
Yeah.
So good stuff, Ted. And man, it's good stuff looking back here to 1983, but that's the end of 83. Next month, we're going to pick this up, and it's going to be January 1984 to discuss the arrival of Mr. R. Man, this is a part of your career that just does not get discussed often enough. So I'm loving the fact that we're doing it here.
Okay.
Well, look, before we go, I've got to remind you guys, if you want this podcast with no commercials and get access to a ton of sports, entertainment, and other shows, get over to premierstreamingnetwork.com and sign up for Premier Plus. If you're a wrestling fan, you are truly missing out if you're not part of what's going on over there. Go and have a look at the website right now for free. It's premierstreamingnetwork.com. If you like what you see, sign up for Premier Plus. If you're enjoying our show and you're listening on your podcast app, do us a big favor. It only takes a minute. Like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review, because that 1 minute of your time is going to make a big difference for both myself and Ted. Also, follow Ted at MDM Ted DiBiase on all his social media. Follow me at Marcus P. D'Angelo on X, and follow Premier Streaming Network at Watch on Premier on X and at Premier Streaming Network on Instagram and Facebook. Another fun one in the books, Ted. I'm excited to continue this story next month.
Well, thanks so much, Marcus, and again, thanks to the fans for tuning in. And as I go, I must remind you all that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
The story of Georgia will continue next month, but we'll be back here next week with another episode right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.